Hello, everyone, and welcome to our District Administration Ed Talk here today, which is entitled Meeting Special Education Needs with Limited Resources. And all of this is brought to you by the generous support of our sponsor that we have with us, Elevate K-12. Since our Ed Talks are brief but highly informative, I'll keep the housekeeping short so we can dive right in. As always, there's a Q&A at the end of the DA Ed Talk, where you can submit your questions to be answered live. You can submit them below in that the red icon there. And lastly, everyone who is registered and or attending will receive an email tomorrow from us at DA with a link to the slides as well as the on-demand video. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our DA Ed Talk speakers here today. We have Danielle Tolbert, who is lead teacher for Haven Academy at the Douglas County School System in Douglasville, Georgia. Allison Pollock, who is senior manager of inclusive learning products at Elevate K-12. And we have Jen Roussart, who is vice president of growth at Elevate K-12. Well, welcome all of you. Glad to have you with us today. You may begin.
Yeah, thank you for having us. All right, so welcome. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules. Hopefully some of you are in summer schedules and are able to enjoy a little bit of fun while you're planning for the ramp up of the school year, which I know keeps many of our partners very busy this time of year. And so today we're going to do a discussion on compliance with respect to your special ed rooms and exceptional children. And so our agenda for today is pretty simple. So we're going to talk a little bit about compliance. We're going to talk about all the different areas of compliance across the country. And then we're going to talk a little bit about our live teaching special ed resource room that was utilized by Danielle. So she'll be able to share with you her real-time, real-world experience. And then we're going to close with, well, how would we potentially implement this in our schools? So with that, that's our agenda for today. So what we like to do is we like to at least start with, overall looking at the problem that we're trying to solve for. So when we look at the trends and patterns within our education workforce in general, there's not only a stark decline in the total number of certified K-12 teachers across the country, but we're also seeing that the open rate of vacant positions is also accelerating at a very, very rapid rate. The most recent data that's been collected and aggregated by the National Education Association, NEA, projects that by 2024, we will face a shortage of nearly 2 million teachers. Additionally, colleges and universities are also seeing a sharp decline in the number of students enrolling in those programs. And so when we think about what positions are hit particularly hard, are those that are servicing our special needs populations. And so 98% of school districts in the US have reported a shortage in special education educators. And obviously, as you know, there is a huge risk to leaving those positions open and also those students not being served. And so Danielle, first question. So what encouraged you and your district to seek out a solution like Elevate K-12? Can you talk to us a little bit about some of the things you were struggling with?
Well, I can't necessarily speak for my entire district, but I can say at my school, and particularly in the program that I worked in, staffing has been a significant challenge in recent years. Very much like your data said, it's been hard to find individuals who want to do this particular work.
Mm. And what was that leading to with how was that impacting the kids?
Well, it's been hard to find individuals who the program that I'm in was for kids with emotional and behavioral disorders. And so finding individuals who have a passion for that population and who want to work with them left the kids not getting that full high school experience, the full academic and really social experience that high school can provide. We were left wanting in those areas.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So Allie, I'll kick it over to you.
Yeah, I'm here to talk a little bit about special education compliance. And so, when thinking about servicing the students in Danielle's district or Danielle's school, and also supporting kind of the teacher shortage in general in the population of special education, we need to work to achieve compliance. So, just a little bit of research here, the education of students with disabilities is one of the most heavily regulated areas in the field of education. And so that leaves the education departments to evaluate states annually and assess how well each state is following the rules and regulations required of IDEA or our Individuals with Disability Education Act. The percentage of students who are served under IDEA, as you all know, is continuing an upward trend. Not only are we kind of seeing that data point shift, but other data is being looked over as well as academic performance results. And this being reviewed specifically targeting the growth of students who have disabilities and ensuring that not only are we being compliant, but those students are making the growth that they deserve to make. And so when we look here to speak a little bit more about compliance, schools we know do have a legal obligation to provide special education services to students with a documented disability in order to access quality grade level content. Obviously, the special education teacher shortage has hit schools particularly hard. And because of this, many students with IEPs do not receive direct instruction from a certified teacher. And so that is what we're here to discuss today. Schools are utilizing a variety of models to support with student special needs. That could look like inclusion, the resource room, or unfortunately no support at all. So Jen.
Yeah, and we know inclusion is highly sought after and also great for kids, right? So these resource rooms can look and feel totally different depending on where they are. But Danielle, what were some of the challenges that you faced when you were trying to staff and support the needs of your resource rooms?
Well, it's been very difficult to find highly skilled special education teachers who had a passion for working with our behaviorally and academically challenging population. And over the last few years, the number of applicants has really dwindled, forcing us to seek out and utilize alternate methods for staffing the classroom.
And what were some of those alternative methods that you used?
Well, a lot of it was looking at teachers who we already had that may have had multiple content certifications, but that really stretched the teachers to teach, multiple subjects and not just multiple subjects, multiple courses in those subject areas. So making it really challenging for them to have enough time for planning and balancing that out. And then also because our population is one with significant behavioral challenges, sometimes that create a little bit more of resistance when they were with a teacher for the majority, a specific teacher for the majority of the day. So not creating that kind of diversity amongst the teaching staff. And then it kind of increased the level of burnout. It also increase the responsibilities of our paraprofessionals, because some of our paraprofessionals were having to step in and hold more teacher responsibilities just because there weren't teachers there. So they had to take on more tasks so that the teachers could provide the instruction, but some of the data collection and just the day-to-day requirements that would be on a teacher were falling on the paraprofessionals.
Yeah. And then, so if I'm hearing you correctly too, is then in that instance, the paraprofessionals were also partially managing the IEPs as well, or how did that part work, or who at the district had to get involved to ensure that we were meeting those minutes and how they were being tracked?
So the paraprofessionals weren't necessarily having to hold some of those IEP responsibilities, but some of that may have fallen on individuals in my role as a lead teacher to really ensure that every aspect of that IEP was being met and facilitated. And so it just allowed growth for many staff people who were holding responsibilities that weren't necessarily initially theirs. But it was more taxing on individuals, and certain things that were I guess could be considered luxuries were put by the wayside. Some of those more fun tasks, some of those things that created more of a student investment in school, some of those things had to be put to the side if we were ensuring that we were meeting IEP requirements, meeting academic requirements, district and state requirements, to ensure that all those boxes were checked. Some of those other things had to be put to the side, which just really diminishes some of that high school experience.
Yeah, for everyone, right? And so what I'm also hearing, so then were you or someone in your position then also observing the classroom every once in a while to just check for
Yes.
how the classrooms were being run, and what were some of your observations when you would visit the classes?
Well, prior to Elevate, not only observing the classroom, but maybe even facilitating instruction. And so sometimes, you know, in a role like mine, if I'm also the quote unquote disciplinarian, the kids are like, what are you doing in here? What did we do? Right? You didn't do anything, but I'm here to support you and to support the teachers. And so I think sometimes it can be good in a way, but it sometimes blurred the lines about roles and responsibilities. And so kind of blur the lines of the students' responses, because they're like, well, who am I answering these questions to, you or to the teacher? Where is the teacher? You know, so it kind of, and when I'm working with kids with emotional and behavioral disorders, they're going to tell you what they think pretty upfront. And so I wanted them to be able to feel like, oh no, here she comes. I didn't want that to be the case, but them to really have an authentic experience within their classroom that didn't include the principal coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. And then how was it different after you implemented Elevate? How did your role change and what did that look like? Can you describe that for us?
Well, my role, I was much more involved with the backside of things, but they could still have their experience in the classroom with their teacher. What that felt more between them and their teacher, but then I had the opportunity of having a lot of involvement with the teachers and with my my Elevate team to help mold and guide what was going on in the classroom without necessarily physically being in there.
And so, Allie, we'll kick it over to you.
Awesome, awesome. So what we have done here is we have started to employ Elevate Special Education Resource Room in districts like Danielle and other states across the country. So when we're talking about our Elevate Special Education Resource Room, this ensures that schools can more fully support students who have IEPs and support in maintaining compliance, providing small group, slower paced instruction by a certified special education teacher who can serve as that teacher of record. Students will get more support that they are legally entitled to, and schools can work toward becoming more compliant. The Elevate Resource Room itself is very versatile. We know that people have been creative this year in providing those service minutes, and so the Elevate Resource Room is the same. The resource room can look like a traditional resource room pullout or a double dip of grade level content. So that could look like kind of an enhancement to inclusion. This resource room can look like core instruction, standalone, self-contained, and an alternative school or a transitional program similar to what Danielle's experience was. This resource room also is versatile in that our teachers providing those direct instructional minutes to students can support in alleviating caseloads of teachers who are still in the classrooms and still needing to be pulled in so many different directions. So by Elevate supporting and alleviating those caseloads, it allows teachers to be more comprehensively present to support all of the needs of the school outside of that direct instruction minute. When we look at our resource room, this is going to be a smaller group space, and it's going to look similar to our core instruction classes, but rather than a general education teacher being on the front of this screen, a special education teacher would be streaming in live. The students could attend their general education class and be pulled out for a portion of the time. Again, they can attend the Elevate resource room several times per week in addition to their full general education class. And the students could also attend an Elevate resource room and receive their core content or credit per their IEP. Based on those minutes, how their minutes are written, we are able to service and be versatile in our support of that. So let's talk a bit about implementation. There are 5 keys to the Elevate Live Special Education Resource Room. We've already talked about our certified special education teacher, but one thing that I also want to add is that we have adapted our content and our resources. Our math and ELA content has been built by subject matter experts to ensure that state standards and national standards are met. From there, and here's our Elevate teacher. This is Miss Ingram. I'm going to back up just a little bit. There we go. Backing up just one here. When thinking about our adapted content and resources, we do have our special education subject matter experts come through and comb through that content to ensure that all ambiguity is removed and all of our standards and skills are focused on those major standard clusters, allowing students increased accessibility to grade level content, but also success in this space. We'll talk about our inclusive learning coordinator here in just a bit, but our inclusive learning coordinator will be an Elevate employee who is, again, employed by Elevate to support your school and your district and making sure our accommodations and modifications are delivered with entirety and successfully throughout each and every class period. And this communication will happen through an increase in collaboration from our inclusive learning coordinator to your school or district site supervisor. So here we have our Elevate Resource Room teacher, and this is just one of them. This is actually one of our mentor teachers, Mrs. Ingram. She has 22 years of experience in special education, a bachelor's degree, and also a master's degree from Walden University. She feels truly blessed and enjoys her job at Elevate, and she states it's a privilege to get to work alongside students in their academic and behavioral journeys. So similar to what Ms. Tolbert had said earlier, Ms. Ingram identifies that as an Elevate virtual teacher, it's also important that you are not only academically supporting students, but behaviorally supporting their journey as well. This is one of our academic coaches, Danielle. Danielle also has a wealth of experience containing a master's degree, not only a bachelor's degree, I should say, in elementary ed and special ed, but also a master's degree in the autism spectrum disorder. She too is so thankful to have the opportunity to reach so many students. Although she's not a classroom teacher, she does have the blessing to be able to impact teachers across the country that are interacting daily with students. And so here are some quotes from the classroom that we can go ahead. Feel free to read those. But while you're reading those quotes, I want to ask Danielle. Danielle, what feedback did your staff and or students have from their live teaching experience in an Elevate Special Education Resource Room? Are you there, Danielle? Uh-oh.
Let's see. I saw she jumped.
That's okay. You know what we can do is I can go ahead and share some of the feedback. Perhaps these are quotes from her classrooms. The students and teachers alike enjoy this experience. So the Elevate Special Education teachers believe that the scaffolds and supports are built in and they are adapting the content that is good for teachers and also for student predictability. Special education supervisors like Danielle are impressed with the teacher's fluidity and accommodating lessons and enjoying how Elevate's platform has built-in differentiation within our systems. And then lastly, we have an impressed special education supervisor here to see they are just impressed with how well the program is going in general. The virtual space really does kind of enhance the learning experience for our students with diverse learning needs, simply because we do have a lot of ways to engage students and re-engage students who may have fallen off task. Looks like Danielle is back. Danielle, are you with us? Okay, we'll go ahead and we'll move forward and we'll loop back to this later. So our inclusive learning coordinator is a really, really important person who is employed through Elevate and supports each and every resource room program. This inclusive learning coordinator collaborates at least twice per month with the school's special education program. And during those meetings, virtual observation data is reviewed. And during those reviews, we make sure that our Elevate team and instructional team is providing quality instruction to students. And if coaching needs to occur, this is where that can be addressed as well. The inclusive learning coordinator and the school site supervisor or case manager are consistently reviewing accommodations and modifications outlined in children's IEPs. We know that students' needs change and evolve. And so what we want to do is we want this partnership to maintain current best practice and implement those accommodations with fidelity and excellence. And lastly, this inclusive learning coordinator is going to deliver data to each school at the individual student level with student attendance data, student engagement data, student participation data, as well as formative and summative assessments. That data being packaged with a pretty little bow could then be utilized to progress monitor IEP goals and or serve as the grades for the students in the LMS or the student information systems. So again, just the most important part of this role and our partnership in general for special education is to ensure that all stakeholders remain current with best practices, and this inclusive learning coordinator will be the cheerleader in doing so. Danielle, did we get you back? We'll come on back to Danielle in a little bit. So when we're talking about consistent collaboration, we know that students with disabilities and 504 plans have increased needs. And so what we want to do is we want to increase the collaboration and ensure that that line of communication remains open and clear. This all being said, there are collaborative opportunities between the teacher and the school-based classroom coach. That is a core part of this Elevate product. We know that our virtual teacher can provide accommodations and modifications from their teaching space, but also we need our classroom coaches to deliver those in-person accommodations, such as additional bathroom breaks or perhaps, proximity for student focus. Frequent formal collaboration check-ins between our special education teacher and instructional team and the classroom coach will occur to review student needs. Collaboration logs and notes will ensure that all stakeholders are up to date on student progress, and consistent contact with the school and district, such as Danielle and her team, will be available to support students' evolving needs. All right, Jen, do you want to hit on some of our successes here? You're on mute,
Okay.
Jen.
Oh my gosh, we haven't been in this virtual world for a bazillion years now. So as we discussed earlier, Elevate can be is a tool strategically used and deployed throughout each of your districts to solve your unique problems. And so oftentimes what we're faced with is, hey, I really want that in-person teacher, right? Like in-person is always better. Well, what we're finding is that with this modality and our live teaching, that we're actually able to deliver similar results, sometimes better, right, than your traditional teachers. The big piece being, we're really looking for those high quality teachers that have 13 years plus teaching experience, but then the ability to be able to connect with our students in this unique modality. And so we wanted to leave you with some statistics from what we've captured from our programs is we've seen a 73% increase in benchmarked assessments for our students. Now, it's a host of different ways that we're able to deliver those results, but it's really a big piece of it is aligning, our platform with those students and being able to modify and differentiate the curriculum to meet students where they are, be it they're in our exceptional or special education resource rooms or in the traditional classroom. The other thing is 88% of our students find the classroom engaging. So our teachers are still able to build relationships, make those connections, in this format, which is very different than the way that everyone on this call went to school. And then the third metric that we also like to point to also ties into that relationship building is that 95% of our students rate the Elevate teachers as being supportive. And so not only do they know the material, but they also know how to connect with those students in the room. And so we wanted to leave you with that before we open it up for some questions. And Danielle's back, yay!
I'm so sorry.
That's okay, we're glad you're back.
Yeah, super glad.
You know what?
So Yep. Allie, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I do see that we have a question in the chat, and I'd love to address that. And then what we can do is we can back up to some of the questions should we have time. And I'm so glad that Kathleen had asked this. Danielle, how are you using paraeducators in this compliance crisis? So how are you utilizing paraeducators, paraprofessionals to support the Elevate space?
That's a really good question. And so Elevate has what's called classroom coaches, and that's how our paraprofessionals or paraeducators are used. And that is the person that is physically in the room, ensuring that maybe a student who has IEP accommodations that require, like she said, proximity or frequent breaks, they are ensuring that those things are being provided. All of our students have behavioral intervention plans, so they're supporting the students in those ways. And then they're also supporting the teachers if there may be handouts or even manipulatives that are needed for the classroom instruction. They're ensuring that those things are provided to the students. It also helps because not all students learn the same way. So some students can look at the computer or the Promethean board, the smart board, and get the information they need. And others may need to take notes with guided notes and things like that. And so they're ensuring that those pieces are in place so that the teacher can do what they're doing from an instruction standpoint, and the students have everything that they need to support them academically and behaviorally.
Perfect. I actually just want to jump in really quick. Sorry about that, team. So we have about 3 minutes left until we get to that 30-minute mark. But yeah, if you wanted to go back to that early part in the presentation, yeah, please feel free to do so.
Absolutely. I think that with the questioning early on in the dialogue between Danielle and Jen, we were able to really capture a lot of the questions throughout. Jen, did you want to kind of, with the last few minutes, share our general education offerings and end with some things here to wrap up?
Yeah, awesome. Also, thank you so much. We have people from Hawaii on this call. We've got some Arizona. I saw some Missouri, some Michigan. So hi, Michigan. I'm from Michigan. So nice to see such a nice cross-section of the U.S. represented on this call today. So real quick, for those of you who aren't familiar with Elevate, obviously this is more tailored towards special education. Allie and I would be more than happy to, schedule time with you if you'd like to dig a little bit or dive a little bit deeper into how we could support your district in particular. Feel free to reach out to Elevate and we'll get that booked. So we shared with you previously our course offering. So it is like very lengthy. So we have a bunch of different courses, over 50 between now elementary, right? So one of the things that we learned in meeting when working with so many partners is the amount of learning loss that we're seeing as a result of COVID, right? Our 6th graders oftentimes are reading at a 3rd and 4th grade level. And so in order for us to be to have that same level of impact with our partners, is we've actually built out those earlier grade levels so that we can start to scaffold that content when we're meeting your kids where they are, even those that aren't in a traditional resource room or exceptional children's or special ed program. And so we've added elementary and we go all the way up through high school. And so we've got some really cool electives, computer programming, coding, as well as many of our partners will use us for their foreign language programs as well. And so the best way to think about Elevate is we can be another tool in your toolkit when you're trying to figure out how do we get quality instruction in front of our students. And so yes, it's a little bit different than some of the other levers that you're pulling, right? Like your international teachers, you've got kids, oftentimes people that are recent college graduates that are being in front of the classroom for the first time. We're starting to see many of our partners think about how to use Elevate as also another teaching tool to help mentor and guide some of those greener teachers or teachers that may be coming from overseas that are still acclimating to life in the US. So there's a ton of really interesting ways to leverage our platform in your districts, in addition to those obvious gaps that many of our partners are feeling with special education. And so when you're thinking about how to pay for Elevate, typically our partners are using FTE funds. And so we can also help you to really understand what that cost breakdown is, and then what are potentially some other areas where you could, pull funds to be able to provide your students with something like an Elevate, which again is typically going to drive those outcomes that we're all looking for, and those, improved scores on the benchmark assessments for our traditional and diverse learners. And so we leave you with hundreds of districts are already using Elevate Live. And I think this year we have run close to 5,000 programs throughout the US. So we've got a massive network of teachers that are ready to be deployed in your districts.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much. We're at that 30-minute mark here, but I'll just say that if there are any questions that we didn't get to, or as I go through my closing slides in just a few moments, please feel free to continue inputting questions into the Q&A, and I'll make sure that they're all sent to our friends at Elevate K-12, so they'll be answered at some point in the future. So again, but first off, before I do that, thank you again to Danielle, Allison, and Jed, for sharing your expertise and time with us today. We really appreciate it. And, of course, thank you to Elevate K-12. And I'd also like to take a minute just to thank you, our audience, for joining us here today. For those who enjoyed our presentation, we have more DA Ed Talks like this one that are provided by us at DA, which is the leader in editorial coverage of news, trends, as well as current issues in K-12. We have a wide range of readers who subscribe for free to DA, and they stay up to date with us in our print mag, online, newsletters, webinars, and DA Ed Talks like this one. Also, for those of you who'd like to watch this DA Ed Talk again, or for those who would like to share these solutions with your colleagues for being helpful, and I'm sure that is the case, you'll be pleased to know that our team at DA will be sending you an email at some point later tomorrow, and that email will include an on-demand recording of this DA Ed Talk, as well as a link to the slides. So with that, on behalf of DA, this is Stephen Blackburn. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you very much. This was great.